the first thing I'm going to do is actually something that isn't in 1.13, but is actually been in for a little while. And but I thought I'd share it again because I talked to a number of people, and people seem to maybe have missed that this is the case. And which it is if let's say I have a piece of text here, and I'm going to make it dynamically visible based on some of these cells here. Now, what I can do is, obviously, sometimes, I mean, I can read that there, sometimes I can't read it, but I want to go to that cell. And the best way to do it, I mean, before you had to click on this button here, you could go and bind it, you could see it, but then that you have to close the window again. But what we did is we added these tooltips, which first of all gives you the full version so you can see it all here. But if I click on that, it takes me to that cell. So that's obviously currently on L5. If I go to L7, it drops me down to L7. One thing to notice is, and I don't know if I can show you this, but if I go, say, to the growth sheet here, and then I go to L5, it's not on the screen. It takes me to the sheet, but it should take me to the cell as well, but it doesn't. But I just have to click again, and that'll take me to that cell. So the ability to move around, I find this invaluable when I'm looking at a project that I'm working on or I haven't seen for a while, just being able to go and click on that and move to the various cells that have been bound to. So just a quick, so I say that's not new in 1.13, but I think it is worth repeating. And so getting into the 1.13 stuff, the first thing is there are a few things to be aware of, to take care about. The first one, and this is really quite important, is that we have the Squirrel file format has changed between 1.12 and 1.13 for some of the work that we did under the covers, which means that if you save a file from 1.13, you will not be able to open it in 1.12. It just won't open. So be careful. I mean, obviously, if you're sharing files with other people, make sure you're all on 1.13, go at the same time. And it's probably best to take a backup of all your 1.12 files. I know you all do that anyway, but to take a backup of your 1.12 files before you move to 1.13, so that if you get something to go back to, because it is just not possible to open them once you've saved them. Obviously, 1.12 files will open nicely in 1.13, but once you've saved those, then you won't be able to go back. So it's really something to be aware of. The second thing is, as you will see as we go through this, a lot of the improvements in 1.13 are to do with charts, updates, bug fixes, and feature updates to charts, and that a lot of work has gone into that. And what that means is there may be some small visual changes between charts in 1.12 and 1.13. We've tried to keep those to an absolute minimum, but there will be times when things are a little out of alignment from where they were before. So if you have things that are really tightly aligned, overlaid or something like that, you may need to make changes for going from 1.12 to 1.13. As I say, hopefully not too many of those, but there have been some things. We tried to keep it as close to 1.12 as we could, but inevitably it wasn't possible to be exact with all the work that we were doing on the charts. Then the last thing to be aware of is that publishing local. If you are on a builder plan and you export your local files to publish locally, if up until 1.12, it used to be the case that if you saved those on a hard drive and then just double click the index.html file in that project, then it would start up in a browser on the local machine. That is no longer possible. It will load up, but it will just be blank. It won't actually load the dashboard. This is all to do with the sort of advancing of web technologies, because Squirrel is designed for the web. It's using a lot of web technologies, and we more and more the browsers are locking down on security. And one of the things in this release, the way, again, some of the things have changed under the covers in terms of some of the frameworks we're using, means that it won't load the files it needs from a local source because it sees it as insecure. So that will no longer work. I don't think there's anybody who's still depending on that. Obviously, publish to the cloud is a great way of just being able to see your project without having to save it to a web server or anything. And given that's there, hopefully this won't trouble anyone. But just to give you a heads up that will not work anymore in 1.13. So those are a few things to be aware of just as you make the transition. And so let's get on to what's new in 1.13. And there are 3 or 4 categories here. First is the chart improvements, and we'll spend most of the time today looking at those. Then we've got some canvas selection improvements, and that's all of this ongoing project to make Squirrel easier and easier to use. Some of these are tiny things, but hopefully make your experience with using the designer just smoother and easier. Then there's 3 smaller but still quite neat things we'll look at then. And then a significant thing for the end of the presentation is we've added 2 extensions to well, actually, it's an extension to Tableau and an extension to Web Intelligence that allows you to dynamically embed content, Squirrel content, inside Tableau, and we'll have a look at how that works at the end of the presentation. So the first thing we're going to look at is charts, and there's quite a few things here. There's the full list, but I think what we'll do is actually, rather than looking at them on PowerPoint, we'll look at them inside Squirrel. And so I will demo all of these to you here. So if I just load up my data sets here, we can start to have a look at those. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a column chart from this data down here, this sort of fictitious energy breakdown data. Now, first thing I'm going to do here is to make auto size the bars. Now, the first thing you'll notice here, which is one of the things that we've added, is that these are now grouped. The bars are grouped 2010, 2011, so you can more easily see which applies to which year. If you want to see how it was in 112, you just turn off the group bars option. So they were all evenly spaced in 112, which made it harder to read. So we've added that group bars option, which allows you to group those there. But then, as well as doing that, and you could do this before, but it's also another. So I can choose to stack the series here. So if I stack that instead, then actually let me first of all just add a legend here. So we've got those there. So I've got those stacked, but what I couldn't do before, we've added a lot of flexibility to be able to change the chart in situ. So for example, if I said here I wanted this to be a line chart or have a line or a combination chart, then I would have had to have gone and started again. But here what I can do is I can come into the data section down here and say for the let's say the coal, the blue one here, I'm going to style as a line. So if I want a combination chart, I just say, there you go. I'm now changing that into a line, so I've got a combination. And so I've now, and I may put it back to a column. And so I've got control. I could make gas a line. So I can really choose what I want to do. Actually make 2 of them lines here, where I didn't have that before. I couldn't do that before. So a lot of flexibility and ease. You don't have to sort of move backwards and forwards, but don't have to come up here and say, I want a combination chart and then do a combination. I can do it all from inside here. I can do the same. There are combinations that you couldn't do before. So for example, this is now renewable up here. I can make that into an area, so I can have an area overlaid on there. And what you'll notice here is that as I'm changing this, the legend now, before the legend you set separately, now the legend follows what you've done to the particular series. So you'll notice that that's now got a line through it with an area, because that's the way that it's shown on the chart. If I was to make that to a line, it just goes to the line so you can see it. So it automatically shows what it's showing on the chart, which makes can make life a little easier. So much more flexibility to be able to do to change the chart however you want when you're in the in one chart type and want to move to another chart type. And that, if I delete that, and then that also works, no, so it's the wrong one. If it also works for bar charts, so I can do exactly the same for bar charts. So let's do the same set of data here. Again, I will auto there and stack them, so it's like that. And before, you couldn't do this with a bar chart, but the same thing is possible here. I might want a line on the bar, so I'm saying I'm going to take coal, and I'm going to style that as a line, or maybe a spline, or a step, or an area, or anything else like that, or even a spline area. So all these capabilities are there, so you can do that. It makes life much easier when just deciding exactly what it is that you want to do with your charts. If I come back and just create another bar chart here, another column chart, I should say, actually out there. Go into actually, just set it up from here. There we go. Now, what I can also do, there are 2 other things which are new and quite handy. Again, I'm going to auto-size the bar. Well, actually, I'm not going to auto-size the bars. What I'm going to do here is overlay the series. and so it's laying the bars on top of each other, which at first sight doesn't look that useful. But what I can now do is come down to each of the things in turn. So I've got coal, I'm going to make 50 wide, and then gas I'll make 25 wide, and then maybe renewables I'll make 15 wide. So I've got them. So they're all different things. Now, that's really neat. I can stack them, but now I can't see them because some of them are behind the others. But that comes on to another thing I can do here. I've got these, as well as being able to add new series, I can change the order of them. So if I want to take them, let me put the legend on so I can see what I'm doing here. General legend. So coal is at the front, but I want coal to be at the back, and it's the same order, back to front, top at the back. So I move that down, you'll see that it's moved back, so it's now behind the others. And this one, renewables, I want to be at the front, so I'll click that up to get at the front. And now I can see them all because they're all, I might need to change actually gas. Let me make that slightly wider so we can see it better. 20, say 30 there. There we go. That makes it a little more. So there's lots of flexibility there to be able to. A feature that a number of people have asked for is this sort of overlay capability, but also the ability to be able to do this up and down. That also means that if I have a line chart with things on it that I want to move up in different orders, then you can do that as well. So there's quite a nice little ability to be able to order the series. So that's that's some of the flexibility in the main XY charts, the bar charts and the column charts. The next thing we want to look at here is again a feature that's been added. If you want it, you'll really like this. If you don't want it, then you'll probably never use it. But it's one of those things that some people need for a particular style of data. So here I've got some data, and it's a growth rate. So this is just growing at 100% with a bit of a random factor in it to make it a little more interesting. And as you can see on here, and as we all saw with the coronavirus and things that are growing exponentially, is charts often don't show, you can't really see what's going on here until it really takes off that you see that. And so what we've done is add the capability to have a log chart on here. So if I go to the y-axis here, then I can do a logarithmic scale. So that then shows me, and this obviously now shows some detail, so I can see at the end it's not completely even growth. There's some difference here, and so you can use a log scale. Very easy to turn on and off. As I say, if log scales are something that you work with, this is great. If log scales aren't something you probably won't want to use it. I certainly wouldn't recommend using a log scale unless you are confident that your audience understands them. They are by no means intuitive. But you can, if you need them, then you need them. And so obviously the way that it works is when it's not a log scale, each of these increments, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 are the same. But on a log scale, it goes by an order of magnitude 10 times. So 100,000, 10,000, 100,000, like that. So we've got that log scale there. And then two other things quickly to look at, which I can demonstrate on this chart. The first one is axis banding, or actually it's more chart banding. So what I can do is I can take some ranges in the value axis and say I want to put on the chart a band there. So if I come here down to, and it works on the axis with the values on it. So this is, obviously I've got my values down here, so it's going to be on the y-axis. If I had it the other way around, it would be the value axis would be X. If it was a bar chart, then I would put it on the X-axis. So I come to the Y-axis here, you can see I've got axis banding down there. If I turn that on, then what I can see, let's say I want a band between 10,000 and 100,000. So that's 10,000, and then in here is 100,000, like that. So I've just a colored band on there. I might do up from 100,000 to a million, like that. So I can, or actually 10 million, actually it's a million to whatever the numbers are you see. So I can start, and it doesn't have to be on a log scale. It can be on a normal chart. So you can start to show things, and you can obviously bind them as well. If I wanted to bind these, say, to particular values, then I could bind them into the spreadsheet and have them move with the data. So that's just a nice extra feature in the charts. And then the final thing is, sometimes if you have a line chart, then you might want to use the full width. People sometimes want it to start over here. So there's a new option on here, which is start the categories at the axis intersection. So you'll notice if I click that, then it's moving to the extremes. When you've got it extreme, the obviously the markers look a bit odd, so you might want to turn the markers off for that. But that just allows you to move them to the extremes rather than have them start where they are and sort of slightly offset. And then one final thing for charts, which was added in 1.13, is if you come down to series insertion here, when you insert a series, one of the things that you couldn't, actually, let me just go back to, if I get rid of this, go back to the bar chart, it's easier to see. Add another, actually a column chart, keep confusing those, and go and get that data there. Again, I'll size the bars, maybe stack them like that. So obviously here, if I turn on the legend, you see we've obviously got 3 series in here: renewables, gas, and coal. Now before, when you did, if we come down to here to series insertion, it wasn't possible. You could a lot of things you could do, the category name, the value, the row, the column, all that stuff. What you couldn't do was take the series name. I do that and bind that into G1 there. Then I need, and I obviously, because it's on the series, I need to do it for each of the series. So series name there, bind that into there, and turn on series insertion. And finally for the third one, turn on series insertion, say series name, and bind it into there. So now what we should see here is when I click, actually these tooltips are a bit distracting, so I'll turn those off. Tooltips on that, on this one. Turn those off. Right, there we go. So now I click on that, see that's inserted coal, that's inserted gas, and that's, didn't mean to double click, and that's inserted renewables. So I can now use the chart to select rather than select a particular value as you did before. You can actually now select the series, which is useful in some circumstances. So that's a nice little extra improvement that we have there. So coming back to the PowerPoint, lots. I don't think I've missed anything. No, they're all there. Lots of great new capability. The flexibility, both to do things more easily and to be able to do things that you couldn't do before. The clustering, the overlay, the series reordering, this log scale, the banding axis, starting at the intersections and inserting the series names. A lot of new things in charts, and as I say, that has meant a little in terms of visual difference from 1.12, but hopefully that won't cause you any particular problems. Then the next thing is canvas selection improvements. So as I say, these are all sort of smaller, but hopefully again will make your experience with Squirrel that much smoother and that much nicer, that much easier, that much more productive. And there are a number of these, but again, probably easiest to look at these in the product itself. So if I just open the first one of these, which is, I don't want to save that, then the first thing to note is essentially meta diagram. So this is an image component, and the image of it is of a selected component in 1.12, and of course this component here is selected in 1.13. What you notice is that in 1.12 we had these extra dots on here, and so we've got rid of those just to make it, they were unnecessary, and it makes for a cleaner user interface. So you see, it's easier to see if I had a text labels, it's only got the boxes at the corner there, whereas before it had all edges as well. So that just makes it look a little cleaner. But then what that means is before you used to have to get onto these handles in 1.12, you had to get onto these handles to size them. But here, anywhere up the side will size them like that, so you can size anything as you go. Anywhere down the sides. Obviously, you want to do change the shape. They can do that as well with the ones at the edges, but the ones at the corners. But the edges, anywhere along the edge, will allow you to drag it. Again, just makes, you probably won't even notice, but it just makes things a little neater. And as you'll have seen when I'm doing that, I now get this nice if I want to do precise sizes I can see it on this I can't move it and point it, but at the bottom you've got that sort of the dimensions of the object. Obviously that works when I'm resizing as well, so I can much more easily see where that's going and just get more precise as I drag it around the canvas. And then the other thing is that you'll notice here is that when I move this, you'll see that it's moving the whole thing. So it's moving the whole label. It's not just moving an outline. It's maybe more obvious with something like, say, a radio button there. So as I move this, I see the contents of it as I move it. Or indeed, if something that the radio button just automatically sizes, but something that sizes. So now I can see it redraws the button as I resize it. And so that's all makes life easier. You don't see an outline, you see the full component. There are a couple of components, one of which is the slider, which although it does draw when you move it around, if you resize it, it doesn't redraw. There's one or two of them like that, but most of them, both when they're moved and when they're resized, will show you the contents. Again, just easier to match things up and line things up and do all of that. And then one thing that you will have noticed as I've been going through is we've also, the last thing on the Canvas UI thing is we've added smart guides into the product. And so these are just 4 text objects here. But if I want to line them up, then before I could select 2 of them and then do sort of the lining up from the icons up here, which is still very valuable. But now we also get this ability to sit here so that you can see where the see, that's aligned center with that, that's aligned center with that, or aligned center with that, or left aligned or right aligned. So it starts to give you much sort of an easier way. It's right there. Other PowerPoint does this as well, so you can start to say center or top or bottom align and do them sort of at the same time. 2 things there, so it makes it much easier to align. It sort of sticks as you get to the red line. It sticks for a pixel or 2, so it's easy to drop it in the right place. And one of the nice things about this, which is over and above these, is if I put a container on here. So let me put a container. Then if I drop these 2 into a container, and another thing we've done in 1.13 is to make it more obvious how you can drag these into a container. So if I drag this over the container tells me I hold control to add it. So if I hold control as I drop it, it's added into the container. You see it's inside the container here, and sort of so move those around in there. But what's quite nice is that if I come out of here, move this container, say to there, if I take this and move it around, you'll see that it aligns, the red lines align 2 things in the container. So there's no way of selecting this one here and that one up there in order to do these alignments. So we added the capability for the smart guides to be able to go across containers, so it aligns to everything on the canvas. And so it's great, makes it much easier to lay out, really nice, sort of it really feels nice to use it. And then but if you don't want to do it, then you can, if you don't want to, if you've got thousands of things on your canvas and it's causing you an issue, then you can use this option here to turn it off. So that is so they're all the canvas capabilities, the canvas improvements. Again, all quite small things, but quite nice. The 3 small but neat things. The first one is dynamic visibility for groups. Don't need to demonstrate that. Really, it's just like containers now. Groups can be dynamically visible. Again, it's something that some people have asked for a while, so that's gone into 1.3. The second thing is that the label, the property on a label, the text label on a property. So if I come here and if I delete that, it immediately updates on the canvas, because before you would hit return and it would put a return in, and it just a bit frustrating. But now as I type this, it changes on the canvas, so I can see exactly what's going on. And the final little thing is I can now double click to rename a sheet, which before you had to sort of right click and do rename, but now you can just double click to do it. Again, tiny things, but hopefully making your use of the much smoother. And then the final thing to look at is the Tableau and Web Intelligence extensions. I'm going to look at the Tableau one here. The Web Intelligence one works in a very similar sort of way. And so here I have a Tableau project, Tableau dashboard, I guess you call it, with a worksheet that's based on some data, and I've got a dashboard made out of that worksheet with a little drop down that allows you to change what's being shown in this this table here. Very standard. I'm not an expert at Tableau, but it's a very standard use of the product. Now, what happens if what I would quite like to do is to put a nice little squirrel visualization in there and be driven by the data in the Tableau workbook. And so what I do to do that is if I come in here and open the Squirrel project that I want to add in here, so the Tableau start here, and I've got the set of data here, which is like the table in Tableau I'm going to bring in. And the way that I set it up here is I add external parameters, and I'm going to say that maybe the data I have to choose JS message, and I say that that data is going to be read into there. And then I'm going to add another one for state. I want the state to come through. Again, it has to be a JS message, and I'm going to put it in there. So that's all I need to do in my Squirrel project. Then I would publish that up to the cloud. I've published one earlier just because just to make sure I didn't mistype the names and it all went wrong. So if I go to my project manager, so this is the Tableau test one here, and what you'll see is when I share it, it says PowerPoint and Tableau ID. It's the same ID for both, so I copy that. Now when I come into Tableau, I can say I want an extension. I'm going to put it up there. I have to browse to the T-Rex file that it's called. We're trying to we've applied to have it added into the marketplace, but for now you have to do it through a file load. It loads up the Squirrel configuration, so you configure very much that you do in PowerPoint. I say I'm going to put that in here, and then it says, well, how do you want to wire it up? And those are the two, data and state, were the two things I added. So I'm going to get it from the worksheet one. I want the worksheet, which is the aggregated data, not the raw data. And I want for the data, I want the product category, the revenue, unit sales, margin, quantity, and number of sales. And then for state, again, I want just the worksheet aggregated data, but this time I'm just going to take the state. So if I finish, that's now going to fill that Squirrel project full of the data from inside. So see, I'm on Florida. I've got revenue for Florida, and these are the numbers for the revenue for Florida. If I come into here, change it to California. So it's dynamic inside Tableau. So it's passing data in, but I've still got all the Squirrel capabilities. So for example, I want to switch between a pie and a bar. Obviously all the spreadsheet things there, so I can do spreadsheet what ifs based on data. So this data is coming out of Tableau, but is still amenable to the what ifing that I'm using in Squirrel. And I can use the add-ons in Squirrel, can go through Squirrel into Tableau. So this is the globe add-on that we published not so long ago. So I can sort of do that. And actually, there's another little add-on that we produced there just to hammer the point home that we can do all of these really quite cool things inside Tableau, all driven from data inside the Tableau. It really is quite a remarkable capability to add on to the Tableau environment. So that's there. And as I say, Web Intelligence is very similar. It has to be set up in Web Intelligence a slightly different way, but it's the same capability. In the end, you get a Squirrel project inside and managed by a Web Intelligence document, fully secure in the Web Intelligence environment, being driven by data from Web Intelligence. So those are the things. Take care between Squirrel versions, because the Squirrel files have changed. We've made the chart improvements, the canvas selection improvements, the three small things: group dynamic visibility, click to rename the sheet, and the dynamic text label. And the really significant one, I think, for expansion of Squirrel outside of our own domain is the Tableau and SAP Web Intelligence extensions. But before we go, there is one more thing, and I'm going to pass over to Mel between there and questions, because she's got something she wants to update you on that's coming later this month. Mel.
Yeah, thank you, Donald. Yeah. So yeah, the slide that Donald's showing on the screen now is perfect for me, because it prompts me as to what is coming up and what's included. So we have been working on a community for Squirrel365 users. So you guys basically that are using the product, passionate about the product, and wanting to get more from it. And the idea behind it really is creating a space where you can come together, discover and share new content, find solutions to problems, collaborate with other users, and generally build on your skills and create kind of meaningful connections and relationships too. So that's a screenshot of what's coming, and we're just finalizing it at the moment, kind of putting the final config together. But essentially, we've got a space there for general discussion. So I ask the community. So that's kind of how to, or I'm trying to do this. Anyone got any ideas, or just general discussion? A place where we can share hints and tips, because we all do some pretty great stuff with the product, and it would be great to share that with others, as we can all learn quite a bit from what other people are doing, I think, and then make a suggestion. So David in the chat, actually, whilst you were talking, Don, was asking me some really good questions, and specifically some around additional connectivity types. And I can pick that up with David offline, and we can talk about it. But what would be great about the community is those sorts of questions asked in the open, so that talk of my MySQL and MySQL connector, then we'll get to understand if that's useful for anybody else, and if there's information, instead of me providing it directly to David, then myself or someone else from the Squirrel team, or even someone else from the community who might have solved that particular problem, can all chime in. So I'm quite excited about the community and what's coming. We've got a space in there to share upcoming events and past events, webinars and things as well. And then also try and encourage sharing of our the projects that have been created in the community, as they serve as a great source of inspiration for others. So the idea at the moment is we're looking good for having this out by the end of the month. That's my target. Maybe sooner, actually, because a lot of the work here is done, and the sooner we can get it out to the wider user base, the sooner it can start being valuable for everybody. So yeah, just wanted to kind of make people aware that is coming. And I think it'll go a long way to everybody getting more from the products as well in the future.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Mel. There are no other questions outstanding, and we've gone 4 minutes over. Apologies for that. So we'll close down now. Thank you all for attending. As I say, the recording will wing its way to you in the next 24 hours. Any questions or anything like that, let either Mel or myself know. Or later in the month, join us on the community. With that, I hope everyone has a great day, great evening, great night, Reg, and speak to you all soon. Thanks very much.